All right, I think we are a go. We are live. Hey, hey, hey. It is Wednesday. It is the new year. It is time for Conversations with Cougars. You thought you were getting one Nomberg or two Nombergs. You're actually getting all three Nombergs. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. Happy New Year's, boys. How y'all doing tonight?
Happy New Year. Doing great.
Happy.
Really, your enthusiasm level really needs to come down just a hair, guys. This show is pretty serious. So
saving that for Monday night at 7 o'clock.
There you go. I want to welcome everybody. Guys, we have done almost 90 of these over the last almost 2 years. And it has been more fun for me than any of you guys. I get to meet new Cougars, old Cougars, and rekindle friendships and just catch up with folks. And I'm so pleased to have both of my brothers, of course, Rob in Virginia and Dave in Birmingham, to join us. All three of us, in case there's somebody here tonight didn't know, we all played at Northview in the 80s and 90s, all wore number 12, all quarterbacked, and that's where I'm going to stop with that. Rob, tell folks a little bit about yourself and your beautiful family.
We have been in Virginia outside of Richmond for 15 years or so, married to the lovely Jennifer, who is from here. And we have a 14-year-old little boy who's a big boy named Gavin, freshman in high school, and a Zoe, who is a 7th grader at Short Pump Middle School. And of course, Cooper the dog, who was named after Amari Cooper.
Nice, nice, nice. All right, DPN, tell us about your beautiful family.
Well, first, I just want to note that you've done 90 shows in almost 2 years. And I just want to say thanks, for finally having your brothers on. Appreciate the invite.
Well, wait, I gotta address that. Guys, it went in order of importance and in order of popularity and in order of requests. And I got news for you. You guys were really slated in April, but we had someone call in sick, so you're welcome.
It's fine. Just give the people what they want. Hey, I'm David Nomberg, the youngest brother. I live in Birmingham. I've been living here for close to 20 years now. I'm married to Leanne Behringer from Montgomery. I too have two kids, both like Robert's in the 9th grade and the 7th grade. Lily's my 15-year-old, and Ellis is my 7th grader. She's almost 13. And I have the pleasure, and have had the pleasure of working with Bernard we just finished our 18th year together. So it has just been 18 long years working together at the Nomberg Law Firm. So glad to be here. Look forward to talking tonight.
All criticisms, all snarky comments are being recorded thanks to Zoom. We will rewatch this in a firm meeting probably on Friday. But no, guys, I want to welcome everybody. We've got a bunch of folks who've rolled in and some who are not named Nomberg, so that's nice. I can't see everybody who's rolled in, but if you have comments or questions, keep them PG-13. We've got some youngsters watching tonight. But guys, growing up in Dothan in the 80s is probably not that different, in my opinion, than maybe growing up in Dothan now. And what I mean by that is we've got tons of sports in Dothan. And Rob, I'm going to start with you. I want you to talk about your love of sports. How did you get started? Because we all played, whatever the sport of the season was at the time, but that doesn't necessarily mean you enjoyed playing baseball or whatever. So how did you get your love of sport?
Through family, right? I mean, seeing you play initially and then living at Westgate. I mean, if I had an alternative address, it would be Westgate, whether it was umpiring or keeping the box scores, or certainly playing, or then watching you guys play. I mean, I still remember and have pictures, of course, that helps with your memory of, on the Tigers and T-ball, wearing all my wristbands and my tough skins.
Nice.
Great memories of that. And I remember you playing at the boys club on the Redskins. And then soon thereafter, because I just didn't wait to start playing football, of playing on your team at Westgate, which I think it was the Colts, but I was like 3 years younger than you, I guess 2 years younger for the league. But because Dad was coaching, I was playing with you guys. Like, those are some of my initial memories, I think. And then, of course, traveling and going to games, really bad Braves games, just so we could see some of the best National League teams in the country, whether it was the Reds or the Giants or Dodgers back then. So I think those are some of my initial memories.
Yeah. Dave, before I get to you, Jason Mullins gives you a shout out. And Jason, I'm going to question this. He said you were a QB not scared to hit anybody. Did you talk to Jason today? Because I don't know where that came from, but thank you, Jason. Always showing some love on this
Hey,
show.
Jason, thanks for joining tonight.
Dave, talk about your love of sport. Not that you had much choice being the youngest of three. You were kind of thrown in there, but where did you develop your love of sport?
Like Robert said, we were always at Westgate playing soccer, football, baseball. And even when we weren't playing an organized sport, we were playing, tackle football, touch football, or wiffle ball or basketball just in the neighborhood. I mean, we just, of course, I'm several years younger than you guys, but I have my own friends. And we were playing in our own games just around the neighborhood. You're always outside, always playing a sport just to stay active and just playing the sport of the season. And, we weren't inside a whole lot. We're just always outside playing ball.
Don't forget sock ball.
That's what I was going to ask you. What was the name of the game that we played on the side yard? If you hit it in right field, it was out of bounds. You were out, those kind of things. When we had the trees or the big bushes, sock ball. That's what it was. And for the record, Shirley C says to tell you both hello. And Pat Fitch wants you both to know that David has always been his favorite of the three. So he's just throwing that out there for conversation purposes.
Thank you, Pat. How you doing? Good to hear from you.
All right, so Dave,
our brother from another mother.
That's right. We heard from Rob about his earliest sports memories, about playing T-ball and his tough skins. What about yours?
What, my first memories?
Yeah, your first.
I mean, it was, as early as we could play, we were playing T-ball, right? And then I started playing, baseball, and then started playing football a little bit after you guys. I didn't start playing football till I think 6th grade was my first year of organized football. I played soccer a few years before that, but
that explains a lot.
But of course, my early sports memories were going to y'all's ball games, right? Being dragged to every game that y'all played at. So it was fun for me to actually get to play once I was old enough.
Well, how much pressure was it on you, David, as a T-baller? One, us making you hit left-handed, but two, having all three of us coach your team. That couldn't have been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Or did you even know any better at age 6?
I had a lot of eyeballs on me, right? A lot of pressure to perform well, but no, it was good. And look, he didn't know any better. Dad coached in Little League, and that's just what he did, and that's what we knew. And no, it was always good to have you guys around. And then I, looked up to y'all then. But is that another ding? No, but sure. I was fortunate to have 2 older brothers who did the right thing most of the time, and I got to follow in those footsteps and try to emulate what you guys were doing, both in in sports on the fields, right, and as well as trying to be good students and good people in the community.
Speaking of good people in the community, Mark Saffold sends his love. Josh Parrish. Not only is he known as Coach Josh Parrish, but back in the day, Rob, we knew him as a little bitty dude, but he is a grown man and does wonderful things. And who's just dropped in, Superintendent of Ozark City Schools, Revis Gertman. Good to see you, Revis.
Hey, Revis.
We got all kind of good folks have rolled in here tonight. Guys, of course, I've got my 2 brothers, Rob and Dave, and we're just talking about playing up at Westgate. What a wonderful facility for us to grow up and being literally in our neighborhood. I don't know if we rode our bikes up there that much, but I know it was a very easy drive. Couldn't have been half a mile to get up there. Yeah. What about going to the Westgate Water World or playing ball at the gym or just meeting up with guys and playing ball on Beecham Field? Those were part of my memories, that's for sure. Did you guys ever sneak up there? I know you did with me, Rob, but what about you, Dave?
Oh, sure. I mean, that was, Westgate was always a short bike ride away. So, no, it was exciting when you got to play a pickup game on the real fields that we played in during the summertime.
Mhm. And for those of you who don't know the order, of course, I'm the oldest. I graduated in 86. Rob graduated in 89. Dave graduated in 94. Speaking of 94, Scotty Edwards says to tell you hello, Dave. Hadn't seen
Hey,
you
Scotty.
in a minute or two. But Rob, let's go back to baseball versus basketball versus soccer versus football. You and I both had very short basketball careers, if you want to call them career. Soccer, I don't even know how many years you played soccer. I had 1 year that I played, and we came all the way to the state championships at age 10, largely because we had 2 or 3 very accomplished players. How long did you play other sports other than baseball and football?
Played soccer 1 year. It was the most miserable year of my existence. I didn't understand it, didn't know why I was doing it. I think I scored 1 goal. The rest of the time I was a defensive. I just played defense. It was a communist sport. I did not enjoy it, and that was it.
And
Basketball and I did not agree with each other. Did not, and never played. It was just football and baseball. That's what Americans play.
I played soccer, but I was like Robert. I had to play goalie and fullback because I was too fat to run. So they just stuck me back there where I have to run too much. But that was like I think 3rd, 4th, 5th grade.
Well, you hit a growth spurt. You slipped up a little bit over time. And Rob, let's hit the football front head on. I know that's your favorite sport. It's not my favorite sport. I don't know about Dave. I don't even know if he cares. But you had the passion. To me, you had the most passion of anybody I knew growing up about the sport because you loved to mix it up. Butting heads, whether it was with a wall in our house with your helmet on or just being the most aggressive at your position. I know you loved playing football. Talk about Girard, talk about the Colts, and then we'll get to Northview in a few minutes. But I want to talk about that time period, Doris Thomas, Chris Lee, Jerry Bryant. I could go on and on. All these old guys that we played city ball with.
That was the love of it, right? I think one, again, was playing with you guys. Like I wanted to prove to myself and to y'all that, okay, even though I was a couple years younger, I belonged out there. And, I remember defensive line most of the time. And that was it. Like, that's where I get to take out all the aggression. So, David, you're lucky. If it wasn't for football, there's no telling what our childhood would have been like.
Y'all took it easy. Y'all took it easy on me growing up.
Yeah, tackling on the cement, the driveway, because that was one of the end zones. But no, that was it. That was just.
For those who don't know, go ahead.
No, Nard, say that again.
Rob, David said that we took it easy on him in childhood. And just for those who didn't pick up on the visual cues there was a little bit of sarcasm on Dave's part.
Yeah.
It's all right. Well earned. No, I just love the hitting. I love putting the pads on. Even before playing officially, like we would just take stuff around the house and, tape something around your arms like they were pads, or put a plastic something from the kitchen on your head because it was a helmet, just to play. I mean, that's where it all started.
Y'all are lucky I didn't post any photos tonight. David, when did you develop the love for football? Or again, was it thrust upon you and you just kind of took it in stride, or did you really enjoy youth football?
No, I enjoyed youth football. And I started in 6th grade, played for the Colts like y'all did at Westgate. And what's interesting about my first year of football was that those were the hardest practices that I had in the, 8 years I played football. Coach Larry Pike was, I think, our head coach, Jim Pike's dad. Yeah. And there were several other dads as well. But they worked us so hard. And I didn't quit. But that 6th grade was definitely, or my 6th grade year of football was definitely the hardest practices that I ever had. But I stuck with it because I enjoyed it. And like Robert, I enjoyed the contact. I played quarterback and linebacker 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. And I enjoyed the contact because I was usually one of the bigger, stronger kids on the field. That changed going into my 10th grade year, my first spring practice. And we can talk about how how Izell Reese changed my approach to contact.
Well, the love of contact clearly skipped the oldest of the three. Hated it, still hate it, didn't want to be any part of it, never played another position once I got into high school. I stayed there and I tried to avoid contact at all costs. And I know Mom was extremely happy about that. In fact, I could see her from the stands during games standing up with that finger, just don't you dare. Anyway, I don't know if Chris Lee and Pat Fitch are still on the payroll from the family, but they did a very nice job for a couple of years. Rob, let's talk about buddies in the neighborhood. Who were some of your running around buddies, middle school going into high school? Because we had, excuse me, it seemed like half of the houses in our neighborhood, Selkirk Drive, right off of Buena Vista, maybe that's called the Brentwood. I don't know what they call our neighborhood, but it seemed like every other house was a Northview house or a Houston Academy house. But who were some of your running around buddies back then?
You know, it's funny as you started mentioning some of the Colts players, and I immediately started thinking, not a running around buddy, but our coach back then, Bill Coker.
Mm-hmm.
And I can still picture the yellow car. I don't know if it was a Gremlin or something else. I know somebody on's going to remember it.
Yeah.
But I remember him opening up the back hatch, and 20 of my teammates came out, and then we were able to practice. But until Coach Coker showed up, like we were just sitting around waiting at Westgate. Like those are the wonderful memories that I've got. And I as you say that about the neighborhood, I'm remembering 7th grade year at Girard, and I was quarterback and linebacker, and Mark Kaufman was the other linebacker. And I can still picture Coach Shakespeare, is now superintendent, or he was superintendent in Andalusia, calling the defensive play, and it was 37-37. I can just see this now, which meant Mark and I were both blitzing right in the middle. And that's, like every play, I think I remember that.
Hold on just a second. You remembered a blitz call from 7th grade?
There's very little I remember about
What did you have for
Northview
lunch yesterday?
and Girard. I don't remember what I had for lunch. I know what I had for dinner, but I still remember the 37-37 call.
That is remarkable. That is absolutely remarkable. And speaking of remarkable, Coach Randy Hicks has just joined us. Hey, Coach. And there we go. Aaron Amanda Howell. It was called Brentwood. She lived on Watley. Thank you, Aaron. Coach Hicks usually joins us. I can't get him on the show, but he snipes in here. He'll have some good comments. So thank you, Coach, and Happy New Year to everybody who's watching us now. Of course, I've got Rob and Dave. We're talking about the neighborhood. All right, going back to the question, who were some of your running around buddies that ultimately came to Northview, maybe played sports with you as well?
Well, Chase lived right behind us.
Yeah, he did. Just had a birthday. Happy birthday, Chase.
Yeah. And as I'm thinking about that and back to Girard,
Mm-hmm.
Somebody helped me out. It was either our 7th grade or 8th grade year. We were undefeated until the last game of the season. And we hadn't been scored on the entire year. And I think it was Honeysuckle was driving on us. We had not scored. It was late in the game. And it was Coach Creel, I believe, was the coach at Honeysuckle. And I remember the entire game, then just dive after dive after dive, and we'd stop it. But they weren't. They got in the red zone, and I remember they faked a dive, and of course, middle linebacker. I just tried to gobble up the fullback, and that one play, pulled it and pitched it and walked in, and that was the only score against us the entire year, and we lost that game. Now, why I remember that, who knows?
You've been watching game film.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, you pulled out some film. No, what I have learned over the last couple of years doing these weekly discussions is that by far, former athletes remember the losses much more clearly than they do the wins. And maybe it's a defense mechanism, maybe it's a learning experience, whatever it is, it unbelievably sticks with them. So I'm not surprised that you remember that vividly.
And to me, it's no different today. Some of our cases, the occasional case we lose, I remember those more than the big results.
We've never admitted we've ever lost a case, David.
Very few. But
no, you're so right. You're so right, because you can't control everything, just like you can't in the game. You can only prepare, and then re-prepare, and then something, you got to be prepared for that too. Dave, in our neighborhood, you had a ton of buddies who
Yeah.
lived across the street, around the corner.
Yeah.
Who were some of those buddies that were your grade, who you played Girard ball with, and then Northview?
Some guys who come to mind, Andy Stuckey, Benton Emblem, Keith Creel, Forrest Adams, and even guys that didn't play on the teams with us. If they lived in the neighborhood, they still played, those pickup games of basketball or football, wiffle ball with us. So even if they weren't on the teams, but those are guys that I grew up with and played sports with year after year.
The sad reality about our old neighborhood is back when we were growing up, we had all of those woods just behind the Stuckeys and the Thornells where we could ride bikes. Obviously, that's been neighborhoods for decades now. But one of the great things about the Stuckeys yard was what, Dave? That driveway.
Yeah, the 2 goalposts and the cul-de-sac. Don't forget the cul-de-sac,
yeah,
which was a site of many tennis, wiffle ball, and softball games. Yeah. But the 2 basketball and the water fountain that Sally and Jim put on the back of the house so that we quit going in their house and drinking their water and going in, just going in their house. Yeah.
That was big.
That's a next level parent right there. I got to say, in the 80s, that's next level. All right. I'm 7 years older than Dave, 3 years older than Rob. Clearly, whatever I did, you guys were right behind me when it came to playing sports or whatever it was. But you guys knew growing up that baseball was my first love. In fact, I've told it here in 9th grade. I can remember sitting with my buddies first day, or it was that spring when you come over as an 8th grader to preview Northview and you meet with the coaches and I remember telling Coach Parrish, Coach, I'm not coming out for 9th grade. Baseball is guy. I've talked to Coach Johnson, and I said, we've agreed. I don't know who the we was. We've agreed that I'm going to come out for football next year. And he says, no, you're not. I've already talked to your dad. You're coming out this fall. I'll see you soon because we'll have a workout. So that was my mental approach, leaving 8th grade to 9th grade about sports. Rob, I know yours was not the same. What was your thought process?
No,
in middle school, headed to the big school?
Well, I mean, the fact that you were a quarterback at Girard, number 12, of course, I showed up at Girard. I'm now quarterback at number 12. Like that just seemed natural, right? Why else would I not do that? But I do remember after our last spring game at Girard, and I think Coach Parrish did this all the time, he'd come and speak with us. And I just like, oh, it's Coach Parrish. He's talking to us, right? And then I got to come over early when Northview had its spring training, because that was the expectation that you and others already started, that the 8th grade quarterback then shows up for the high school spring training, and just sitting on the sideline and watching. And I do believe I had a pair of white cleats that Coach Parrish broke in once with a little chew.
Nice. Why were you wearing white cleats? I guess that was the style we all wore back then. It's certainly, I guess they're all over the board now. It's not even a comparison. But Dave,
if Joe Willie was wearing white cleats back in the day, then I was going to wear white cleats when I could.
Dave, do you remember that transition out of 8th grade coming to 9th grade? I'm not talking about the academic side. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the sports. Now, as we all did, we're coming together with some of our Honeysuckle friends or Carver, guys we played against. And now you're coming over to the big school for 9th grade. And what about sports? Did you automatically just think, I know I'm playing baseball, I know I'm playing football?
Yeah. And like I said, played, baseball, football, basketball in middle school. And then, I was a part of, thinking about 2 of my teams in 8th grade, 9th grade. I was on an undefeated 8th grade basketball team at Girard, won a couple of tournaments. So it was really cool to be a part of an undefeated basketball team, even though I was deep on the bench. And then coming over to Northview and you felt like you were part of this super team because you got your Girard guys, you got Honeysuckle guys, and maybe some of the guys from the other Beverly and Carver came over as well. But then I was on an undefeated 9th grade team, so I was like, I'm surrounded by some really talented people and athletes, and so it was a good transition from 8th grade to the 9th grade team, and had fun doing that.
Did any of those 8th or 9th grade teammates go on to play at the next level?
Yes, on the 8th grade basketball team, Otis Dury.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He passed away several years ago, but I think he went to junior college, and then I don't know. I know he's heavily recruited, but I don't want. I thought he might have gone to Auburn.
Somebody in the audience may remember where.
Yeah, but Otis was an amazing athlete, amazing basketball player. And then on the 9th grade team, there were a couple of guys. William McKissick comes to mind. He was a 3-year starter at cornerback for the varsity team. And William went to, Bernard, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he went to Alabama A&M, Alabama State.
Oh, yeah, I misspoke, Dave. I thought you were talking about strictly about basketball. There's a list this long of your football teammates, and we'll get to those guys in a minute, because you had some great classes directly above the 2 years above you. But I want to transition away from athletics for just a minute. You guys had the benefit of coming over to Northview during my years. So it wasn't a new school to you. I mean, a new property. It wasn't unknown. So many first time students coming from 8th, 9th grade, even in Dothan, that's very overwhelming and intimidating because it's a junior college campus. You go from, a couple hundred in your grade to 14, 15, 16, whatever, 100 kids in the school. Here's my question. I'll start with you, Rob. When you came over in 8th grade and then started in 9th grade, I know you were excited to do so. We'll talk about our rides to school in a minute, but I want to talk about your impressions from an academic standpoint, from this whole new world is now opened up to you academically. What was that transition? If you remember, if you remember 37 double blitz, I know you got to remember a little bit of this.
I don't, David. It was such an easy transition just because I'd been in the school so many times. I've been around the school. It felt normal and natural. And I didn't realize at the time, obviously, that wasn't everyone's experience.
Right.
So it was just a natural experience, natural transition for me. It was easy because of you. It was just easy.
Where was your 9th grade locker?
That one. I can talk blitz packages, but I can't talk locker.
I know you guys hadn't been in the school in 1,000 years, but remember where all the lockers used to be lined up in a row right outside the library?
Yeah.
Well, for many, many years now, they've been around the perimeter of the school, like most schools, I think, traditionally have done. So that area is now just a big open space. But I can remember just getting lost in the aisles. If you had a lower locker and you shared with somebody and it was in the middle, Lord help you if you could get 5 minutes to get to the next part of the campus. But Dave, what about you? How was your transition leaving Girard and coming over to Northview?
I think I was pretty scared for most of it. I mean, you go from 8th grade, right, to the 9th grade, and it's just this big school. And I think our freshman class was the largest freshman class at that time in Northview. It was like, I think it was close to 500 students. So, but yeah, I think playing football and knowing some of those guys, and you start practicing and you get to hang out with your friends before school starts because you're practicing. That helped with the transition, getting comfortable with it. But you're the 9th grader at in a 6A school with 1,500 students, so it's easy to be intimidated.
It is, but being part of sports programs or teams, or even if you were part of yearbook or a band or whatever it is, just being part of a group, I think helps a little bit with that transition. So I know that helped. Now, Rob, Chase is not on here tonight, so it's just me and you. I will not confirm or deny whether or not you were permitted to speak your entire 9th grade year riding to school my senior year. I think it's just family lore at this point. Would you care to comment?
I can comment. It's truth. There are enough people who can confirm this. But yes, your senior year, my freshman year. Bernard, thank you for taking me to school every day. I've got a lot to talk about because I was not allowed to talk in the car at all, ever, for an entire school year.
I was not and still am not a morning person. And I think Blake Hall kind of, I don't know, just put this impression. because we listened to that dadgum Rick Springfield song every day of my 10th grade going to school. And I don't know, I just channeled it to you and Chase.
Well, after you, Scott Applefield took me to school until I drove, and I had so much built up and ready to talk on the way to school, but I think Scott got tired of it very quickly and bought a brand new sound system for his Bronco, I think, and just cranked it up. So I was talking to him the entire way to school, but you couldn't really hear anything because the music. So after 2 years of that, I finally got a hit and drove myself. So thanks, Nard.
You're most welcome. Most welcome. Dave, how did you get to school 9th and 10th grade years before you started driving?
9th grade, I rode with the coolest guy at Northview, Gray Harrison. He was the starting quarterback.
Wasn't he?
Yeah. No, Gray's a great guy, and he started for 2 years at quarterback, and he took me to school. Yeah.
Very good.
Could have been 3, but I was in his way. I'm sorry, Gray.
Pretty cool guy from Arizona just chimed in, Norris Thomas. Hey, Norris, thanks for tuning in with us for a minute or two, and Happy New Year to you. Well, guys, we've been talking 33 minutes. We ain't talked about football yet. Are y'all ready to head into the football arena, or you want to stay on the academic side a little bit?
Yeah, academics, yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about who are your favorite teachers today.
I don't want to leave anybody out. I don't want to single anybody out because I don't want to leave anybody.
You can't remember any of them.
But we had good teachers. They prepared us well, and they challenged us. Northview was very challenging and got us ready for college for sure.
Did either of you skip a certain 6-period class in order to go to the gym to watch game film with Coach Parrish?
I cannot say that I did. What about the lunchroom? Did you guys both work in the lunchroom?
Yes.
I feel like I should apologize to everybody who ate in that lunchroom, whatever period that I was working back there, slinging French fries directly after working out and still sweating. Those are some sweaty fries, and I apologize now.
Well,
I didn't work the line. I worked the a la carte French fry section, a la carte French fry cart.
Nice. I do want to talk about, before we head into the football for real, I want to talk about school spirit. I want to talk about Dr. Smith. I want to talk about what it was like just walking the halls. I don't mean on a game day. I just mean as a regular Northview day, just being a student. My experience is that, I came in my freshman year was the year after they won the 81 state championship. So it was all-time high. And then my 4 years, it just seemed to always be just great school spirit, particularly when you have Shirley C., Mr. Helms. I mean, I could go on. Of course, I don't want to name all, because I won't name them all because I can't. But for me, it just seemed like school spirit, whether it was sports related or not, just seemed to be so high. Rob, Dave, what was your impressions of what I'll call school spirit?
Of course, that your senior year, my freshman year, was part of that, and saw it and felt it everywhere. Cars were always decorated. I remember signs around Dothan, at least the northern part of Dothan, had always something, on a billboard or a sign on a window. I remember seeing that, reminiscent of like, Friday Night Lights. So that was part of my experience the first few years. I certainly remember all that. And you couldn't wear enough Northview gear, whether it was the jackets and the t-shirts. And I still remember cousin Anna giving us some of the tearaways, and us, like, there was nothing better than wearing a used Northview tearaway jersey when you're playing in the neighborhood.
Boy, those are collector's items now, but you're so right. A Philip Braswell, a Steve Entz, all those first few years players, that's all they wore were those tearaways. But it could be 95 degrees in Dothan or 90 degrees at the Peanut Festival, and you're still wearing your Northview jacket that had your name and number on the back of it. You may have pushed the sleeves all the way up, but dadgummit, you're going to show out, aren't you? How proud
That's
are
right.
you put that jacket on? Jason Mullins said you serve some awesome sweaty fries. I'm just throwing that out there for discussion, guys. All right, let's talk about football. Let's talk about ninth grade. Let's talk about how horrible it was to play and practice down in the pit. Rob, how terrible was the wind flow or lack thereof? And who were your coaches for ninth grade?
See, I don't get that. Those are some of my favorite days.
Oh, we're going south quick right here.
I love the practices. There was just to me, there's just something about, and it's still this way, even when I'm on a field now with Gavin, my 14-year-old. We go to the local field. There's just something about stepping over that line. It may be a little, I'll mix sports here, and it's sort of a little, if you build it, they will come, right? You step out and you're on the field. It's just always had that, I don't know, geeking out here on it, but it's just that magical place where you get to say, all right, whoever I am on that side of the line, I get to transform, and now I've got the blinders on to play football. So I love being down there. Now, it'd be nice if there's a little bit more grass on the field, but hey, it's football.
There was no grass. There was no
rocks, dirt, some glass.
Who were your coaches, Rob, ninth grade?
Coach Andrews, Coach Tribb. God, we're gonna play the game of forgetting names now. That's who I distinctly remember, because Coach Andrews was our quarterback coach.
My ninth grade was Coach Tribb and Coach Cleveland, but Coach Cleveland had left by the time you came.
Yeah.
Dave, who were your ninth grade coaches?
I don't remember. I remember the varsity coaches, but I feel bad.
That's all right. Jason,
they're not
listening. Ninth grade coaches, let us know who they are. Now, we didn't run. Now, I saw in later years in video, when you look at the side of the bowl of the big where the ninth graders practiced, I think it's now a softball complex, but the grass, or what was left of the grass, at least during Josh Parrish's tenure, it snaked. So where you could see where guys ran on the side of it.
Yeah.
I remember just going up and down. I don't remember sideways. And I just remember when you got up top, for me, you breathed in as much air you could possibly hold, because you knew you got to go back down and come back up. And Lord helped us when it rained, because the pockets of water that would accumulate down there, I remember just being pretty awful.
I don't have any of those memories, but we weren't fancy enough to have it snaked through. It was just up and down. We're old school.
Yeah, I remember there being U shapes in the side of the hill, which you would run for exercise or punishment.
Yeah,
you go up and down and up and down, and it was a U shape. Yeah. That's what I remember about that.
And we don't have all of our phone lines here are buried, so I don't see telephone poles, but the telephone pole on the other side during preseason, that still have those wonderful memories.
What was the 2-minute drill called? Around the horn? Somebody help me. I just
blank. I can remember some of the stations, the bear crawl, and some of those other things. I do remember having a prima donna moment in my mind. I never would say it out loud of, I'm a quarterback, I should be throwing. What am I doing this stuff for? I'm in shape.
And then you got lit up. Well, Dave, let's talk about your first time practicing or playing with the varsity. You're playing quarterback. This is in your freshman year was in 90.
Yeah.
And the team went 10-2. Sorry guys, I got to bring it up. It's the bad loss to Murphy. The Jinsu's kick was good. We all know that. But that's your freshman year. So you're getting a little taste of that in the stands, seeing such a very good team. Yeah. Sophomore year, we switched coaches. Yeah. You now have Coach Whitcomb for the next 2 years, followed by Coach Kinard, whereas Rob and I strictly had Wayne Parrish as our coach the whole time. Yeah. So you're coming up to now play, hopefully get some varsity time your sophomore year. Do you remember any of that just from your mindset man, I'm up here with the big boys now. I got Kevin Jackson, I got Izell, I got all these studs that want to take my head off.
Yeah. So that was, I guess, my freshman year ago. It was spring training of 1991. That was my first spring practice with varsity. And as I mentioned, I was usually, from sixth grade to ninth grade, was usually bigger, stronger, not faster, but bigger and stronger than most of the guys on the field. So I played linebacker and quarterback. We'll get, going into that first spring practice, I was focused on playing quarterback. And there was one practice in particular that I remember that was an introduction to 6A football. Running back went I won't say the wrong way, but we went different directions. The running back went one way, I went the other way. So I had the ball. So I just decided to tuck it and go around the corner. And there was a future NFL safety, Izell Reese, and the cornerback. So it was two of them greeting me as I went around the corner. And I thought, oh, I'll just run through these guys. Because I didn't run, I just ran over. I tried to run over people. I didn't try to run away from them. And anyway, fast forward, I think they about separated my shoulder. So I missed a few practices after that. But that was my introduction to 6A football. And I learned at that point I was no longer bigger, stronger than most of the guys on the field. As a 15-year-old, you think I would have figured that out when you see somebody like Jason Mullins, who's got like a full beard, but I learned that lesson.
Well, that was probably your introduction to 6A varsity football. That's for sure. And I can't tell you how many guests we've had on here, former players who've said that the practices were so much more intense than the actual games. They look forward to Fridays because the guys who are on the other side of the ball were typically next level or even pro level players in the future. Rob, what was your introduction to 6A varsity football? Do you remember any early times?
What comes to mind, I don't remember the year. Couldn't have been my sophomore year because I decided to tear a little cartilage in my knee the first game my sophomore year. So this had to have been my junior year. And I remember playing against
fall of 87.
I remember playing against Ozarks. It must have been the last game of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm talking, hopefully I'll remember his name. There was a defensive end who, after our senior year, signed to go to Alabama. And sadly, he died in an accident. I think he drowned before fall practice started. But I remember him knowing my name and yelling at me across the line of scrimmage before a play. And it scared the bejesus out of me. Like, who are you? Like, I don't remember you from middle school, do I? Like, what did I do to you? I can be your friend. And just him just ripping my head off. Maybe as we talk, I'll think of his name, but just what an just amazing athlete, both junior year and senior year.
Rob, I want you to talk a little bit about Coach Wayne Parrish. He founded our program. He was the coach for the first, I think, 13 seasons. He was the coach of the 2 state championship teams. He is as influential on the Northview sports program as anybody.
Yeah.
But I know that the two of y'all had a pretty special bond.
Yeah. Was, is, and will always be one of, greatest, mentors and heroes, just for everything that he's done, everything that's accomplished, and just the man that he is. And it was as much off the field as it was certainly on the field, just to see how he carried himself, how he looked after everyone. We talk in education circles now about equity, about making sure that everybody has what they need in order to succeed. And I saw Coach Parrish, Dr. Parrish, practicing that, as a middle schooler and high schooler. And they'll sum it up this way, because I could go on and on. And part of that, I remember even roasting him at one point. I think when I was either had graduated and come back, or I was still at Northview, but just such a wonderful relationship. But I remember after a particularly bad string of losses, And we all know Coach Parrish's wonderful stories about, not quitting and never giving up. And, if you quit now, this isn't the hard stuff. It's when you're married and have kids and a job and that story. And that was just all ingrained in us. Not that I knew what it was like to be married or have kids or have a job when I was a teenager, but that we all know that story.
Yeah.
But I remember after this long string of a couple of losses, after a game, I was watching the game film with him at school, and I was in tears because it just wasn't going the way we thought it was supposed to go, right? And I remember saying to him, Coach, I think I'm doing all the right things, and I've always worked hard. It's just still not working. I feel like I just keep getting knocked down. Like, what else do I need to do? And he just looked at me and grinned and said, Robbie, it was always Robbie. You just keep getting up again and you keep going. And, many decades later, I still remember that lesson and how important that was to a 16, 17-year-old kid. So I think that sums up everything I feel about him.
It's a beautiful story because it's so true. You talked about Coach Bill Coker picking up kids. How many kids did Coach Parrish pick up in the neighborhoods and take them to and from practices every single day? Countless kids. The only way they get back and forth.
And I don't want us to leave time before we leave, just to make one other shout out about, and he was only in Northview for just a couple of short years, but Jim Adams was just a couple of years older than us. It was his first real coaching job that Coach Parrish hired him. And he was just absolutely a complete, total mensch to me, and was so supportive of me. I still, the things that we remember, right? Coming off the field at halftime and him giving me whatever pep talk I needed at the moment and handing me a Gatorade in the 95-degree, Dothan weather at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night on a Friday night, and just how much that meant for just this, another adult coach, parent, father figure in our lives to say, keep going, you're going to be all right. I'm here for you. So thank you, Coach Adams.
You're absolutely right about all of that. Dave, what about you? Same question for you about your experience. You had a unique experience of 3 different coaches. I know that Coach Parrish didn't specifically coach you in 9th grade.
Right.
You had Coach Whitcomb for 2.
Yeah.
And then you had a completely different experience with Coach Billy Kinard.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about their contrast?
Sure. Yeah, I was kind of disappointed that Coach Parrish, that he wasn't my coach in my varsity years, because y'all had good experiences with him and I'd known him most of my life. But in comes Coach Skeebo Whitcomb from Chipley, Florida, I believe, and he had coached some college players himself, and he was such a nice person and a good coach, and he really looked after his players, and I enjoyed playing for him. And Coach Kinard, I mean, we use the term old school a lot, but Coach Kinard was old school back in 1993. Loved running the ball, and just hard nosed, kind of coach. And, he was happy with 3.3 yards per play. That's all he wanted. But it was just a different mentality, and but enjoyed playing for both coaches.
And for those of you who didn't know of Coach Kinard or didn't know him back in the day, he was an all SEC legend from Ole Miss, not only as a player, but as a coach. And for him to come through was a pretty cool treat. Well, I don't know if treat's the right word, but it was pretty cool to have him as a coach for the period that he was there.
It was a big deal. And I believe his brother was named Bruiser Kinard, and is a Pro Football Hall of Famer.
I think so. I have to look that up.
I might have to look that up, but yeah. When your name's Bruiser Kinard, you're probably a pretty good football player.
David, did you enjoy that offense of all that running?
No, not especially. I'll tell you one quick story about how much Coach Kinard loved running the ball. My senior year, we beat Dothan High. I did not throw a forward pass. 0 for 0. And we beat him. We beat him, and he loved it. We ran the ball every play. And I was miserable but of course I was happy we got a win. That's the most important. But damn, you want to throw the ball, you're a quarterback,
You didn't have
Really?
complete control of the offense. You weren't allowed to audible.
Yeah, maybe audible from running the ball from the right to the left side. That was about all. Instead of throwing a pitch to the right, I got to throw it to the left. That was about my only audible.
Now, guys, that scoreboard behind my head, that's our home stadium. That's where Northview played for all 41 years. And Friday nights in Dothan, when you're a high schooler or a junior high kid going to those games, it truly was like Friday Night Lights. It's the game of the night. It's a small town. And particularly if it's a rival game, everybody's going to that stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I vividly remember being in the home team clubhouse or locker room, which is underneath where the student body and the band were sitting. We would feed off that energy because you could sure hear all of that.
You feel it.
Talk about that, Rob. What did you feel? What do you remember about the bus ride from the school and then getting to pregame and then the game getting to start?
Yeah, those were sacred moments. Those were almost religious. There was no talking on the bus. You were just focused, not a word, just in your head. Just going through plays, scenarios, like, that dialed in. And then being under there in that nasty, musty, small locker room. And do I remember that there's actually 2 sections to it? I'm having a hard time visualizing it.
Showers.
Yeah,
There's
there's always a shower in that place.
Yeah.
And I remember, maybe you remember this, Nard. I remember the story of Coach Parrish, like literally lifting players pre-game. Like I don't have that memory, but I remember some of the stories of it. Like that was the intensity.
I have the visual. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I could not wait to get out of that. I don't know, maybe I'm claustrophobic. I don't know it. I just could wait to get out of that because it was so hyped up and so intense. Like I needed the air to all right, little Phil Collins, like in the air tonight. I need to get out. I need to be outside. I need to be on the grass and feel the grass and be on the field.
I hovered by the back door. I didn't get deep into the room for the same reason. David, talk about the Dothan High game. Richard Hudson says Coach Ryan was bragging about that Dothan High game, all runs and no pass.
Yeah, that's right.
Dave, take us into your locker room at Rip Hughes pregame, that ride over on the bus. How quiet was it? Did you have a lot of chattering? What was it like in y'all's bus ride?
I think if you look back from the 10 or so years that we were playing football, I think that was all be consistent during those 10 years, right? Riding the yellow school bus is over. It's quiet. You might be listening to, some music on your headphones. And then you pass by the bakery and smell the bread and
where you fall asleep.
But yeah,
fall asleep.
Oh yeah, every time. But go ahead, Dave.
No, that's one year after another. It was all pretty much the same for all of us, right? And just that build, that excitement would start building as the band would come in and play, and the students and the parents and the fans would come in and fill the stands, and you'd start getting a little noisier.
Now, David, when I say ride, Sally, ride, what does that mean to you?
Ride, Sally, ride. The first thought that comes to my head is Willie White. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
Willie White?
Yeah.
A year or two ahead of me. I think he's Jason's year. Huh?
Willie White also says hot dog all the time. That's his big thing.
Yeah, he would dress up for road games. He would put on his coat and tie and have a briefcase, business trip, and just passionate. God, he was passionate and loved knocking the snot out of me when I was scout team quarterback. Yeah.
Post game rides back when I brought up Ride Sally Ride. post-game rides on the bus back to campus after a win at Rip Hughes, what were some of the songs? I remember Ride Sally Ride being part of your years, David. Do you remember any of the post-game feelings? I vividly remember the rides back to campus, and Bubba would typically go through certain neighborhoods where our players may live so that they could shout out to their families as we're going through the different neighborhoods back to campus. And there was always songs or chants or something upbeat, but I didn't know if you guys remembered any songs or any of that. I know we're digging deep right here, but this is just part of it.
Again, I can do middle school blitz packages, but I do not remember that at all.
No.
That's crazy. All right, let's go on the field for just a minute or two. Oh, let's see. All right, that's sorry, Sean, that's too long for me to read out loud, but I'll come back to it in just a minute. We got some more folks. Sean Myhand has just entered the chat. Norris Thomas says Coach Singletary at Girard yelling Jack City when we pulled up. That's great. That's great. Dave, let's start with you with this. You got to play with some super talented guys. You really did. They were on the tail end of Rob's years and a couple of them in your years, but you had Kevin Jackson, you had Izell, you had Stanley Owens, you had James Johnson, who ended up playing in the pros as well. Jinsu, I mean, I could go on and on. There's probably a dozen or more during your years who played at the next level at various schools and various levels. And here you come in as a 10th grader and start.
Yeah.
Did it, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, were you just not knowledgeable enough to appreciate where you were in 10th grade, what you were doing, and you're so new to it, you didn't even know to be nervous? Or did you really just fit inside?
Well, I mentioned my welcome to 6A football spring training. I also had another welcome to 6A football. It was our the first game of my sophomore year. We went over to Colquitt County to play Moultrie. I didn't start that game at quarterback, but I was the up back or personal protector for the punter. The punter happened to be, Kevin Jackson. Like, he needs my assistance, and but I'm the personal protector. Again, I'd learned I'm trying to avoid contact. Well, the Moultrie rush, they were looking to contact me in the head. He was taller than me, and his shoulder pad, his helmet, every time just hit me in the head. Probably got 5 concussions that game. But we lost that game 33-0. It's like, welcome to 6A football. And let me tell you, if you saw a linebacker looking at you across the line and he had a neck roll and a mullet, that's intimidating for a 15-year-old. But again, started playing quarterback after that. I got to start, and Coach Whitcomb knew how to handle me as a young starter, because there's so many talented players around me, as you mentioned, guys that went on to play college, went on to be All-Americans and NFL players. So he put me in a good position to help the team, and we ended up going to the playoffs that year.
And that can only be done by a coach who is experienced. I think a new coach, if they'd have put you in that position, might not know how to protect you as well. So I did always appreciate that. But by the time you were a senior, having started 30-odd games, you were just a pro at it at this point, because not many guys get to play 3 straight years on the varsity level in 6A football.
Definitely got more comfortable. Each game got more comfortable, and I got to do more things as far as audibling. And, you never threw the ball a lot. I mean, I maybe threw it 20 times, a handful of times. You just didn't throw the ball a lot, especially in a run-oriented offense like Coach Kinard ran.
Well, and with all those athletes in the backfield, you didn't need to, frankly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm confused, though, because by your senior year, your last game, you weren't allowed to throw at all.
Well, speaking of throwing, what many of you don't know is that Rob set state records and placed himself all-time nationally in one game his junior year against Greenville at Greenville. Threw the ball 67, 69 times. What was it? Completed 37 or 39, almost 400 yards. But, and I don't want to harp on the game too much, but I do want to acknowledge the fact that back in our day, if you got your name in USA Today sports section for our state or for your state for what you did, man, you were top dog. And Rob was in there like 3 straight weeks because the next week you threw a ton that game as well. But Rob, here's the unique thing. What was the offense you ran in the Greenville game?
The first play was the Notre Dame box.
Explain the Notre Dame box for those who may not have ever heard of it.
The idea is that Jamie Holman, who's the senior quarterback, would start the game and be the quarterback of what was the Notre Dame box. So it's just that it's a square. There's meant to be 4 running backs, and it was what Notre Dame ran. I don't know what, in the 40s probably.
Yep.
And then we were supposed to then, after that play, we ended up fumbling on that play and we were out. But the idea is that we would then audible out of the Notre Dame box into the spread. And then it was just nothing but throwing 68 passes the rest of the night.
You know, the crazy thing is, who in high school gets to run 68 to 70 plays in a game? Back then, that was unheard of because it was all ball control. But the fact that you got to throw that much, I'm sure your arm was down by your feet by the end of that game. But to set state records, which I'm sure are if they're not still state, they're probably in the top 3. But also to place yourself nationally. And I hate to date you, Rob, but that's over 35 years ago coming up.
Yeah, there's gray in here now, Nard. Thanks.
Well, I told you at some point I'd circle back around and get for you. But here's where I want to go. And we're getting close, guys. And I appreciate your patience and you're keeping your sarcasm in to a minimum.
I just need to check the Alabama-Florida score. Go ahead.
Somebody posted in the chat, please. Here's a question that I want to ask you guys about life lessons from on the sports field, playing on a team. We can prepare all that we want, like you mentioned with your talking about Coach Parrish, Rob, but we don't have control of everything. But we sure learn a lot. That's what's so beautiful about team sports. Doesn't matter to me what sport it is, being part of a bigger group effort teaches us so much that we then use later in life, and hopefully our kids pick up on a little bit as well. But Dave, I want to start with you. Playing team sports or playing sports in general, because I know you played you played intramurals and all that and still played pickup for many years. What was it about playing sports that I guess was either important to you then or important to you now that you were able to use as a lesson?
Yeah. Love being a member of a team, and we were members of teams, growing up through, for me, it ended in 12th grade. But to me, I took a lot of pride in also being a team captain for many of those years. And so a lot of those lessons that I learned about leadership and discipline and commitment, stay with me to this day. And, as I belong to different organizations in college and different organizations today, taking on a leadership role in those things. So yeah, there's no doubt that those things I learned growing up playing sports are with me today and help me to be who I am today.
Very good, guys. 70-61 Bama. Thank you, JJ, Joseph Johnson, and Josh Parrish for giving that. David, RTR. Dave, you're so right about that. That if you're going to play sports at any level of your life and any periods of time, you can't help but learn lessons like that. Rob, I know you have similar lessons, but you also have much different lessons that you utilize in your world, not only professionally, but with children and just everyday life. But what can you share about some life lessons of playing team sports?
Yeah, no, Dave nailed it. That was the beauty of it. It was just being part of a group, being part of something bigger than yourself as an individual. Right? I didn't play a lot of individual sports, still never played a lot of golf or tennis. It was always, and certainly no more soccer, but it was always about being part of that greater unit. And, after I graduated in Alabama, I taught for 2 years and I coached football. I got to, like all those lessons from Coach Parrish and Coach Adams and Coach Andrews and others, I got to take and like, okay, I'm now in that position. And those 2 years of coaching and teaching, I still remember the very first day I walked into the school, my first day of teaching, which was a Monday morning. I'd been hired the Thursday prior, the Friday morning prior, after being at the practice for a couple of hours on a Thursday afternoon. And I opened the door to go to my classroom, and I can hear one of my future students who played football yell down the hall, "Hey, coach, good morning." That was the greatest sound I'd ever heard in my life. Right? Still remember that moment, how important that is. And now with kids, how important it is to make sure that they play sports and are playing sports and just passing down, it's passing down those lessons of being part of something that's greater than yourself, and how important that is in all of life.
It's so very true. Jared Andrews says to tell you hello, Dave. He was glad to have shared the field with you back in the day. You both have athletes in your family. Gavin, 14, ninth grader, playing quarterback. I know that probably equally sends chills down your spine for one reason, and to his mother for completely different reasons. Dave, you've got a runner. You LS 7th graders running for the cross country team. How do you as parents not overstep your bounds as now the parents who are not the athletes anymore? And you want just best for your children, but at the same time, you're living out a little bit of dream there. Rob, how are you dealing with that these days?
It's hard, and I'm glad you brought it up. No, it is an absolute blessing to be able to sit back and watch both Gavin choose to play, and Jennifer and I were very careful, me more than her, of being able to sit back and say, he's in charge of this. I don't ask him if he wants to go throw or go run or work out or anything. It's all got to be him. So I'm pretty careful about that. But it's really Zoe, the little one, that thinks she's Najee Harris and is expecting to play next year, her 8th grade year at Short Pump Middle School. Zoe's not quite even 5 feet tall, but she thinks she's little Najee. So that's the one I really worry about the most, because when Gavin and I are throwing, she's got the cones out. She's running drills.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Right, Dave. What about Ellis? She learned so much this year running cross country because she's having to deal with all kind of elements, the weather.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of injury here or there. I can't remember that, but I'm sure not every day she wants to go out and run cross country. How do you keep her motivated?
Well, I'm glad she's got coaches to coach her, because she certainly is not going to listen to me. So I try not to yell, because my wife, her mother, will put me in line for pushing too hard. So I let the coaches do their job, and I just go and run and get it done that way myself.
All right, last two questions, and I promise I'll get you guys out of here. We played so long ago; it's been decades. Our childhood is not the childhood of our children, and each decade, each generation is different. We didn't have the electronics. We didn't have the I got to have it now mentality of instant gratification. It's easy for us to say, as one of you guys mentioned, we just played outdoors all the time. Yeah. But our children, that's not their childhood. My question is about the current athlete, the modern athlete. They're all bigger, faster, stronger. It happens every generation again. But there are things, I'm sure, like Rob, you watched the high school football team play this year, and as well as Gavin's middle school or junior high team. There had to have been some things that you liked about the current athlete, the current game, that one, reminds you of your days, but two, what were things that really of the modern game you wish you had back when we were playing?
Yeah, what's amazing now, and I didn't appreciate this until after Gavin's first game. He comes home and he opens up Huddle, I think it was what it is. Like he gets to sit there and watch the entire game back on his film, every play, and then they can pinpoint, their own plays and compile everything that they've done. That's pretty amazing to have that type of technology immediately at your fingertips. And that's the good if you want that, but then it's also the specialty and the subspecialty and the coaches and the trainers and the recruiting services. It's to some degree it takes away from the kids just lining up and crossing over that white line and just getting after it, right? There's so much more pressure because to some that allow it, it's so much more high stakes. Like I don't remember the kid's name anymore, but I think he's a junior or senior in high school somewhere. Like he just refuses to have any social media, refuses to have any Twitter, and he just plays ball. And he's so good that everybody knows who he is. Like that's probably rare nowadays, but
he's the unicorn. He is by far the unicorn.
Yeah,
absolutely. So some of that innocence, I think, may be gone from it. But as I say that, I'm not a boomer, but I sure sounded like one just now.
and that's why I'm not going to answer the question.
All right, we'll let you skip on that one, Dave. But I guess as a final, a closing question. We all had great memories. We all had bad memories. That's what high school is about. Our school is no longer a school, unfortunately, and now we got somebody else in our old campus, which just makes everybody uncomfortable. And that's partly why I started this Facebook group a couple of years ago and have these. We're just talking about the oral history of the school a little bit, about the program, and about football days. So I guess, Dave, my question to you is, I know you're proud to be a Northview High School graduate and to have played, but how can you, if you can, put it into words?
Well, first off, thank you for putting this group together and recording interviews each week or almost each week to save these memories. It's really cool. I know you're getting paid a lot of money to do it. But I don't know if this answers your question, but I don't think we brought it up tonight. So I will kind of leave with these comments is that a lot of what we were able to do was because of our parents, who gave us every opportunity to do what we wanted to do. So I know y'all will join me in thanking our mom and dad for making those opportunities available to us. But I tell you, some of my best memories of playing for 3 years involves my family being at my games. And there's great wins, there's horrible losses, but through all that, my mom and dad were at my games. My grandparents were at most every home game, aunts and uncles. And then you guys were off, in Tuscaloosa, in Nashville, at Swanee and Montgomery, and y'all missed very few games. So, stripping it all away, what I'm getting to is that, these memories involve family being together, and that's centered around, football. I went to y'all's games, and then y'all came to support me. And that's really cool.
Yeah.
Rob?
No, you absolutely nailed it, Dave. And, that's actually my experience too, right? So, I got to be on the field and part of the greatest high school football season ever, your senior year, Nard. Like, I was the official offensive statistician. I mean, I was there. I got to see every single game and be part of that. And then, as you just said it, David, and this is so true. Like, that's where we spent every Sabbath, right? The three of us with our family. Whether I was in Birmingham or Tuscaloosa, I drove home to see every one of your games those 3 years, except for one out of town game, and I can't remember where it was. It was probably just too far away. So that's what it was all about. It's all about that brotherhood and that family. Those are the eternal memories.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about we had 3 games a week. from Bernard, when you were playing all the way through, when you finished at Vanderbilt to, I would play on Tuesday or Thursday, I guess. And then Robert, you had games, and y'all would go on games on Friday night when you were in high school, Robert, and then at Swanee later on. So 3 games a week, and it was centered around football, and we were together as a family. It's football brings us together. I just got back from Dallas to watch Alabama beat Cincinnati. Why did I go? Because my daughter wanted to go. It's it's centered around football, being together around football.
Well, guys, you've survived it. You've thrived in it. And I want to thank you both for being here tonight and hanging out and talking a little bit Northview football. So thank you both.
Thank you, Nard. This is great. We're going to do it again next week. Is that how this works?
Well, in 2 weeks, I already have a guest lined up for next week.
Okay.
You want to come back in 2 weeks, we can make that happen. If
Kids
not,
edition.
Kids edition, that's true. Well, guys, as we try to do every Wednesday night, conversations with Cougars, and we had a little surprise. I teased you with Dave during the week, and then Rob snuck in at the last minute. We're so glad that he did. Some awesome memories shared tonight, mostly truths, but thank you both. Thank you guys for keep showing up. We had a ton of folks roll through here tonight. That's largely tribute to the guests tonight. So that was great. So thank you both. You guys,
Do I still get a show by myself though?
if you'd like, we can bring you back in April. I don't think it'll be too soon, but we'll talk.
Okay.
All right, guys, continue to be safe out there. Do what's right for you and your family. Keep showing up Wednesday nights at 7:00 Central for conversations with Cougars. Have a good night.
Roll Tide.